be outside, gotta be willing to deal with the elements. Okay, this is today's episode. Okay. Okay, I'd like to personally, let me not get in the way of that. I'd like to personally welcome you guys back to another episode of Dream Chasers Insanity. And hopefully, this change of environment gives you guys an opportunity to see that this is a lifestyle. This isn't just a job you sign up for. This isn't a title that you carry just to get benefits off of. This is a lifestyle. And it requires you at times to adapt in ways that maybe you would have never considered, because fulfilling the goal or actualizing the mission is more important than having something to complain about and somebody to share that struggle with. Giving you more and more opportunities to find other people that also, when opportunities aren't of just ready availability to them, they will go out of their way to create them to continue progressing on the journey that they're on independently. So for today's episode, I just have to thank you for joining us, because we're growing quickly. And to know that this was just a dream at one point, making these videos, contributing to a collective that I would have never even imagined I could pull. I don't know where I was going with that, but where I'm trying to get to is, if you are a creative, if you're somebody who is struggling to make that decision, to go from decision to doing, just do, and then make a decision based on how you feel after you've gotten it done. I promise that's going to help you. You attempting to juggle, well, I'm not doing it right, or who's going to judge me, who's going to this, all of that is just a bunch of excuses to not do the thing, because probably you don't want to feel the emotion that comes on the back end of doing the thing. The more you allow yourself to get comfortable with feeling the things that come up within you and validating them, and then maybe giving those a chance to express themselves authentically in this real world that we live in, I guarantee you, the more enjoyable, at least the more in tune you will be with your own reality. Giving you a chance to finally make the changes that allow you to fully appreciate it. And that's where I'm trying to get you to. It's with this video, I understand that there's so many people that call themselves healers and wizards and magicians and psychics and all that type of stuff. I wanted to really give my community, the people who believe in me and the content that I push out, I want you to know that I am who I say I am. And I would love other people who struggle to validate themselves in this life to be able to use these lessons that I'm sharing to hopefully help them do that and truly step into the purpose that they came into this life to fulfill, even if their current circumstances or reality isn't giving them a chance to really feel that. It all starts from within, and I guess a good way to enter into this video is, I never wanted to go out of my way to call myself a healer or to call myself a shaman, to call myself a mystic or any of that in this world that is so heavily dependent on what your identity is, because that almost determines in totality how people will respect you. But I'm starting to realize the information that I'm giving, the advice that I'm giving, the help that is being received from these messages, it's one that aligns with somebody who is all of those things. So in my attempt to stop rejecting myself from that healer identity, I have also had to go out of my way to understand what a healer is to me, and how I personally am attempting to stay off of the path that many healers in this society we live in do end up falling down, because they end up falling in traps of needing to compensate themselves through their identity of being this morally superior person, rather than realizing it's okay to serve the self first, and then from being able to do that, serve others beyond yourself. So it never feels like an expectation to save anybody or successfully save anybody. It's just what you're doing because you genuinely desire to share the abundance that you have with others, rather than hoard it for yourself or for like your future great grandbabies. So thank you for listening to that whole entire monologue. And if you're still here at this point, I got a bunch of links down there in the description if you want to support the channel or you want to see me in other modes of media, if you want to call it that. And I definitely, by the time I post this, or maybe sometime this month, which is August 2024 right now, there's going to be a Discord. I want my own community of collective consciousness really jumping and booming 24/7. So we're going to get that on there too, as well. But lots of good stuff coming out. What I'm focusing on right now, instead of trying to do anything revolutionary, big, boom, life-changing, I'm just focusing on being consistent with this person that I know I am and allowing the world to appreciate that. Allow the world to accept that. And from the acceptance of that character, then I will continue to feed you more value and more different kinds of opportunity that will allow us to grow into better relationship with each other, whether it is in real life or just parasocial at that. So before you even get into the rest of this video, go ahead and like, comment, subscribe, share this to somebody who you hate, bro, and make sure that they share it to 10 more people because they're shameful. Yeah, go ahead and read the board and we're going to get started on this. Okay. It's very important to start this video by almost splitting healers into a duality. And not saying that this is a duality of right and wrong, but seeing this as two expressions that the healer has an opportunity to become dependent on the choices that they make in this life. And then, of course, more unique expressions of healers are based on the decisions that they've made consistently over long periods of time. This is my personal awareness as to the two main types of healers that I see in this world and how one falls victim to their good intentions and another one usually doesn't get validated in the ways that other healers do, but is doing much more significant work than the healers that are so self-proclamatory. I hope that's a word, but more self-proclaiming. So to understand the healer's journey, it's either, and I don't want to just only subject it to this, but for the sake of time, we're going to address it in this way. The healer is usually presented with an opportunity to heal somebody else, to save somebody else, and they are inspired to create a lifestyle out of that. Or they're backed up into a situation where they are forced to create the healing circumstances for themselves. And in being so selfless and being so appreciative of their ability to save themselves, they create those systems or they take the energy that they've been able to understand to comprehend their own circumstances, and they share that, whether it's by courses, it's by content, it's by building community, sharing that with other people to apply to their own circumstances, giving them a chance to hopefully take responsibility, which is a huge thing that I'm going over, to heal themselves. But in a world where our identities and what our identities have done is just so important in validating if we deserve to get like humanized or not, you have to realize that there's a bunch of healers that are living with the mindset of, oh, I am the number one-ist, the bestest, the mostest healer, and I've saved the most people and I have the most souls aligned or awakening because of the validation and the compensation monetarily and materially that brings, rather than being the person who selflessly learns and studies and heals and cultivates and cares for people without expectation of needing to be compensated or needing to be validated, because in themselves, that healer knows the work that they're doing is helping other people. And they can see that based on the appreciation of their clients' lives, based on the appreciation of their clients' circumstances. And that is contentment enough for them. For a healer whose healing is not the sake of like the bane of their identity. Healing is just a part of their purpose and something that they do while they are fully actualizing the rest of themselves. And I also want to blame capitalism for that too, for making us so hyper dependent on or enslaved really to the identities that allow us to serve or provide for ourselves rather than allowing us to have some complex understanding of who we are as humans and then how that applies to a society to appreciate it in a greater sense. But we'll get into that in a second here. I call my I call these people, oh, not my feather. Not my feather. I call these people who don't understand that healing starts with the self, or at least it has to be, the awareness has to begin within the self to recognize, at least have a foundational sense of empathy for what it takes to help others heal, and to even decide if you're somebody who can participate in complementing that journey for somebody. For those who don't understand that and are usually healing for selfish desire, selfish nature, it is, I want to be deemed healer, so I will do the things that a healer does. The problem that I have with that is their identity or their ability to accept themselves is dependent on their ability to save other people. I'm going to use a sociological example for this one. When white liberals attempt to align their marginalization with the marginalized people that they attempt to represent in the grand scheme of government, they forget, forgive me, I may have lost that one for a half second here. We're going to get back to it though. Oh, they forget that they're not genuinely meeting the people's needs that they're attempting to save in the community. Actually, what's happening is that they are just creating an opportunity to sell the illusion of saving people, but really the only thing that's happening is the ego of the white liberal or the savior is being filled every time they feel like they make any progress in the direction of social justice and advocacy for these marginalized people. But they only go as far to the extent that validates or comforts their own emotions and self-concept. The healing is never genuinely to meet the needs of marginalized people that they're representing, because think about it, if you meet the needs of the people that you are responsible for saving, or at least you create an opportunity for them to save themselves, then truly ask yourself, what do they need you for beyond that? They won't be dependent on you. They will be dependent on themselves, and from that point, they choose whether or not they respect you. They choose whether or not they appreciate the advice or the sacrifice that you had given for them. And that takes a lot of humility, because most people are so selfish. Woo! Most people are so selfish that they don't understand, or they don't have it in them to give thanks, to give gratitude and appreciation for what has been given to them in this life. Very, very entitlement based. And I don't know if I fully fleshed out that thought that I had, but remember, the well being of the savior complex minded person is in their ability to save others. But when they realize the needs of the people they're attempting to save are way greater or way more complex than ones they have the means to solve, then they start to invalidate the needs of the people that they're saving, or suppressing and rejecting the true emotions of that person, so they don't have to be faced with the reality that they attempted to save somebody else to stop themselves from taking responsibility for the healing they need to do in their own lives. They have to go and take responsibility for somebody else's process, somebody else's journey, to feel good about themselves, not knowing that it's another form of escape from taking responsibility for personal circumstances and being able to fully accept your own life. And then from the steps that you have taken in your own life, you offer that advice to somebody else, because now from actual experience and intention, you can now provide assistance to somebody. But when the intention is to fulfill your own ego, and I wrote it right here, and I was going to touch on it when we got to the end of the video, but I guess this is the perfect time to plug it in here. When you're healing to serve the ego, you will only go as far to serve that which serves your ego. And you will leave all the extra needs up to whoever. Oh, you know what? Those needs aren't real because obviously I am okay with the work that I've done here. I'm okay with walking over a bunch of homeless people in my own country and going to a third world country and then building 10 homes there when they probably need about 10 million homes because I feel good about what I did there rather than, oh, what I'm doing is just exacerbating the problem because it's making more people feel like, oh, we're contributing to something good instead of this is a huge problem, Mr. Beast. Forgive me, he's getting written down this week, so I just had to include that in there. I've realized I've been talking for a minute, so let me give myself a little break to catch up on my thoughts. It's just I really want you guys to understand that this it's unhealthy when people are attempting to save, to go beyond themselves to save, to gain that like validation of being a savior or to feel the emotion of saving somebody else. I'm telling you, it's because they lack the ability to do it for themselves and they lack the understanding of how much work it genuinely takes to take responsibility over your own circumstances, especially when they're negative and there's very few people who understand them, much more want to even support you through them. And that's what a true healer understands. And just like I'll kind of drop this off into a sidebar, that's what a true intellectual understands as well. The more you learn, the more you grow and develop your own sense of self-awareness, the more you realize the loudest people have the least to say more times than not. And it's the loud people attempting to gain validation for being something, for being president, for being not president, for being present in a world full of fearful people, rather than us being able to see, maybe some of the people that aren't talking are a lot smarter than the people who are. And it's because they actually understand the circumstances and they understand when it's time to include their value and when it's time to shut the fuck up and listen to the value others have to present. Because they're not always right all the time. Just as much as they are teachers, they are students, they are learners, they are somebody who is receiving the game from a novice position to continue to put themselves in the best position to react from their present moment. Not hoping to cling on to an identity that's going to tell them, oh, well, you know what, because I am list identity healer here, I have the right to tell you these things, or I have the insight to give you. Like, fuck that. Fuck that. And mind you, like, I'm not blaming healers in the forms that they come in this society too much, other than like the cult leaders, like those ones, those need to get arrested. But I don't blame the healers because we in America, especially in this Western world of just like colonialism and lack of culture and community, we live in this cult of identity where it's people are so invalidated in who they really are and the complexities of their own humanity. They take one aspect of their identity that's the most validated for whatever age or position they are in society, and then they exploit the fuck out of all of that to validate themselves as the decent human being or something that at least doesn't give them anxiety, preventing them from sleeping at night. And then people end up grouping themselves in cults of hyper specific, nicheified identities, which is just an ego deciding I am this, and then we all align with other people that think they are this, not knowing that every individual person has their own needs to meet, and we will end up tearing each other down to meet the needs of each individual person at some point, rather than understanding that, oh, we're getting into this community because there is a need that is being met by this community, and I am sacrificing my own self and my own unique accommodations to contribute to this collective to help better meet that need, and then in turn have my needs met as well in the form of a conscious community that can cultivate a culture. I think I might have said this in like every single video that I've made since I posted up my self-concept to self-actualization series. So go ahead and check that out. It's free and it's like 6 hours. So I would love if you check that out for me. But before we conclude on this the savior complex thing, because I really need to drill this into your head. We can even look at the nonprofit industry. And there was a video that I was watching. Hold on, let me make sure this is still recording. All right. There's a video that I was watching that was saying, well, you can, and mind you, I'm not sure specifically if I'm going to get like the actual specific concepts right about this, but for the context, I'm going to have a grasp of it. So they said, what if somebody actually met the needs of people who were hungry or people who didn't have housing? If there was a project that met that need and it only took 3 months, 3 years, 30 years, if that, then at the end of that project or that mission being accomplished, there's no more needs for the jobs that were serving that need. You understand what I'm saying? So people can't make a career, a 9 to 5, out of saving people from dire situations, because you'd have to fire all of these helper roles and find a new position for them in a society that is more equitable, and we don't manufacture suffering and oppression and disease and illness and sickness to validate why we do a majority of what we do. Like, if we did allow people to be clothed, if we did allow people to be housed, if we did allow people to take care of themselves, if we did allow the opportunity for that and allow people to fuck that up after giving them the opportunity initially, then it would make sense as to why we punish people. But we punish people for existing in the wrong circumstances, not for putting themselves in that position, for existing within them. And then make them a victim of the circumstances that are ones that the government, that the billionaires that we pray to every night aren't going to fucking save. And to make sure that we're not going off on like just being like, oh, I hate nonprofits, and then just kind of like letting that be a viral clip, I want to just add in here, this whole nonprofit sector industry, it's supposed to be project-based work that is localized and in relation to the community members that can serve that project for the time being. And of course, you can compensate people for it, but I guarantee you, nonprofit industry is for tax evasion, for rich people. There's, what money do poor people have? What time do poor people have to invest in volunteering for anything in this economy? And what money do poor people have to invest in any nonprofit in this economy, other than being used for tax loopholes? But to finish the thought that I was having, because this is a whole new nonprofit industry complex, and me and my young people on my page are going to help us instate this into the world. But the point of this is project-based nonprofits that are only funded for the duration of the project and have to constantly be renewed as long as the projects are still being fulfilled, and the people get to decide whether or not the money gets to keep going into these said projects. And the people, again, have access to the financial statements, so we can see what kind of billionaires and millionaires and whatnot are just using these as tax loophole money cleaners, instead of actually investing in opportunities to stop or alleviate the people of the problems that they're suffering, stopping them from really contributing to society in the best way they can, or at least in the fullness that they can, because everybody does so in a unique way. But again, I say this in a handful of videos, capitalism must manufacture, it must manufacture suffering, so the people, when suffering over long periods of time, they agree to the illusion, they suffer for long periods of time, and they have nothing else to cling on to, because all they know, all they've been being fed is the illusion. They will cling harder and harder and harder onto this illusion of capitalism to validate its parasitic nature in a world that never needed it, rather than the people deciding that capitalism has never actually done right by them, and the people deciding that we're going to find a new system that complements the people in the same way that capitalism only complements the powerful. And then everybody else just happens to be like a bastard byproduct of that. I don't know if we even, I know I write these here, but that's just like the notes that go through my head before I present these videos to you. So just know that the videos are freestyles, to be honest. This is just a general scope of what we're going over within this video. And then you could look at my pretty face and my cool hat while I'm giving you the give, doing you the do. Anyways, really have some discernment around the people that claim themselves to be healers. I'll conclude this video by saying this. And again, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, because I'm always willing to learn. I don't want to be ignorant. There's a book that I was reading about indigenous elders, indigenous American elders, and was saying, I don't know if it's children don't get named until they become a certain age, or the name isn't given to children and by just like, oh, mom and dad thought of this name and then like, now this is your identity. It's literally like the community sees you and holds you and loves you and understands you and gives you titles, gives you different names, even if it's just a nickname. It's, I think, to all almost indigenous of the land cultures, pre-colonialism, and how communal we were, how we depended on each other, not because of survival, but we depended on each other because we knew we needed each other to live as well. I just, not having, to really connect everything, not having that initial sense of community and then being fed some bullshit like social media puts us in a realm of where we create our own mask, and then we really live and die by our ability to uphold the mask that we've created, rather than knowing that we are not responsible for necessarily creating a perfect mask. We are just in this life to live a full life. And in that, we might have one mask, we might have 100 masks, but our ability to understand that we are the infinite being wearing the mask, we are the person appreciating the mask, investing in it, creating it, cultivating it, and knowing that, and that is our purpose, not being the mask, that gives us an opportunity to see this life in a completely different way. And beyond that, that gives us an opportunity to give value and significance to the communities that create human beings, and not just the people who give titles to the beings that they have created and own. To all my healers out there, keep crushing it. All my healers out there that are suffering every single day with their own circumstances and still expected to contribute to society, or still expected to serve in a world because you need compensation to pay them bills, just know I'm rooting for you. I only dream of a world that is equitable and that is loving and respectful of the people who are genuine. Hopefully y'all saw that little butterfly in here, or whatever that was. But there's a new world upon us. That's the only thing I can tell you. And I'm very glad and excited to see where we go with it. But it's going to take some healers, real healers, to get real with themselves and to decide whether or not, they're going to fulfill their destiny. They're going to pursue their purpose in this life. And if they aren't willing to do that shit, we're at the mercy of all the people who call themselves already healed, who call themselves healers, not knowing that this healing journey is infinite and we have to constantly give ourselves in servitude to this. But everyone's going to be at the mercy of whoever calls himself a mystic and a healer on TikTok and Instagram, until we realize that. I guess I'll save that for the next video. You guys have a great rest of your day. Links in the description. Tap in with me on literally anything. I'm horrible at responding, but one day I will get to you, and we will make that DM connection. And then I'll forget that I even had that conversation for another 4 weeks. I'll keep making these videos, and you'll probably have some kind of animosity for me. But this is the journey that we're going on, and I'm putting my life back together. So I can be there for you, my people, my loves, my fans, my kin, as much as I possibly can be. Because I truly believe I couldn't have done this healing journey, especially of my own life, by myself. This only led me into the path of where I was supposed to be, and that's giving this kind of content to you guys, giving you guys a chance to see your life from a different angle before you make decisions that you can't come back from. Stay lit. Let's rock out, bro.